I got asked recently, I went to something with Justin not too long ago, and it was a very religious crowd. I don't know that it was a certain religion, but they were Christian, hardcore, middle America Christian, and wonderful people. But afterward, we were visiting with everyone, and a younger woman was chatting with me. She was really on fire for the Lord, and she asked me, well, where do you go to church? And I really didn't know what to say at that moment except the truth. And I think, when we're in those situations, you can want to tailor your answer to what they want to hear to make everybody more comfortable. But ultimately, that's not true. And so I had to speak the truth, and her surprise on her face, I was able to say, really, I don't go to church. Life is my church every moment, and I want to come from a place of love. Love is my religion, and I used to go to yoga sometimes for it, and she just looked kind of surprised, like she didn't understand. But to me, all those things are, again, searching outside of ourselves for a place to find God. Is it going to be in this next job? Is it going to be in this next book I read? Is it going to be, am I going to go to Peru and do ayahuasca? Is it going to be at church? And we've put all these external things on it, and it's such a cliche, but it is an inside job, and it is a matter of just sitting and letting your stuff go, relinquishing control, and surrendering.
There's a lot of mystics on the internet. Shout out and much love, you crazy fools, that could use dusting off a textbook or two, warmly, without judgment. And secondarily, there are certainly a lot of scholars in academia who would be well served by eating a mushroom. So I'm trying to bridge those two worlds. I'm Bob Peck, and this is Karmic Relief.
My background is in documentary film and comparative religion. I wrote a book called Original Sin is a Lie: How Spirituality Defies Dogma and Reveals Our True Self.
It's an interview show where I talk to spiritual teachers, activists, scholars, people that live within these traditions and also appreciate the overlap. What happens when you start to get activated internally, that makes you activated in a compassionate way in the world. I'm thrilled to be talking to fantastic, inspiring human beings. I have to do much less work, which is nice because I'm just asking them questions about their story. It's a life hack.
Hi.
I hope you'll enjoy these explorations, these really excavations. In the ones I've filmed so far, they've all been really beautiful and deep and lighthearted. So please enjoy Karmic Relief. I'm Bob Peck. I wrote Original Sin is a Lie, and now I'm asking a bunch of questions to intelligent, compassionate humans.
Amy Edwards is such a bright light of a human being. Her energy is so tangible. She's a multi-talented producer, podcast host, musician, children's book author, and growth mindset hero. She had me on her show, The Amy Edwards Show, a couple years ago, and we're good pals here in Austin, Texas. She's married to another one of my heroes, Justin Wren, who's a former UFC fighter turned humanitarian. Amy and Justin both do incredible work in Africa for Fight for the Forgotten and Amy's new branch called Fight for Her. Her work centers around how it's never too late to start anything. She's an inspiration on impermanence and an example of how to be a very good human being. Enjoy.
All righty.
Amy Edwards.
Bob Peck.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me. I'm so honored. I have so much respect for you, and I love your book so much. And so it is just my pleasure to turn up and share anything that I can.
Amazing. Well, I'm thrilled to hear that, and I appreciate your support. And we had a great conversation on your podcast.
Yeah, I started it off by crying, I think. So, I don't know if you're gonna return that, but
I might. Feeling emotional.
But I would highly recommend that to anyone. And we really talked about your book, and I just really enjoyed it, and I can't recommend it highly enough. If anybody's listening to this and hasn't listened to your book or read your book,
thank you.
Do it.
Your husband, well, y'all were somewhere, and he was like, Amy's talked like 70% of the conversation topics at this party was about your book. He like told me that. I think it was the East Forest screening or something. He was like,
oh yeah,
she was like hogging your book. I was like,
yeah,
God,
I was.
You're the best. And you know, the book resonated for you because starting in the early years, you grew up in a very Christian household.
Yes, I did.
And you're not Christian. Would you describe yourself as ex-Christian or post-Christian? I mean, you're kind of like me, where it's like the cosmic Christ lives right here.
I think that's why I love your book so much, because it really resonated with my own. You were preaching to the choir a little bit, with me, and I knew that there was more, and I could never accept that this is the one path that you have to follow, and that's it.
It's a little silly.
It's a little silly, and the world just seemed like such a bigger place, and I had this natural inclination to explore religions and to try and understand. And it was really discovering philosophy that opened it all up for me when I was, I think, 18 or 19. And I took just a summer school class at CTC in Colleen. And I was going to SMU at the time in Dallas. And it just changed my whole world. And I remember saying to my friend that I took it with, she had told me to take it. And the instructor was so incredibly good. That can make or break it. And I told her one day, I think I'm going to change my major to philosophy. And she was like, you're crazy. And I was like, I know it's crazy, because I was interested in radio and communications. And I never knew how those would fit together. But look, here we are sitting here now. And so it just changed my perspective in there's so much more and so many questions to be answered. And I enjoyed delving into those, both philosophically and religiously. Those go together so much in my mind.
Sure.
Answering these big questions, what is life and why are we here? And so I really let go of the way I was raised, which was Methodist and sprinklings of Baptist in there, but it just felt so not right to my soul. And so I pursued religion as well as philosophy and religious studies, and I just wanted the broader picture. And once I took a class in Power, Politics, and the Making of the Bible, I think that was the name of it. It's over. Yeah, it's over. You start to go like, wait a minute, there are a lot of hands in this pot. And, you know, you've talked about that a ton. And so I think that I just started to understand our humanness affecting it all. And then as I've grown, I converted to Catholicism once along the way. I don't even know if you know that.
No, I didn't.
With my first marriage, I got married Catholic, and I
Mass.
agreed. Yeah. We had a really amazing, forward-thinking priest, an older Irish guy, and he said, look, I don't believe that you have to be Catholic to be married Catholic. I don't care. God is one for all. Everyone can take communion. I mean, he just had a really wonderful perspective, which I appreciated. And so I thought, well, if he can have that view, I can get married Catholic. But my dad impressed upon me, look, do you really know what you're doing? Because you're agreeing to raise your children Catholic. And I was like, that's okay. I love a bunch of Catholics. I was 25. And I didn't really understand. I was stuck in a lot of people pleasing and a lot of this is what I'm supposed to do. And as the youngest daughter, I think that I just saw that as my role. And I didn't know my own voice.
Sure.
And I didn't know my own everything, beliefs. So
both your parents are Methodist. Were they church leadership?
No, my mother, though, was very involved with the Methodist Church.
Got it. Okay.
She wrote a lot of letters to the Methodist Council, and she was
just heavily involved.
She was heavily involved, but she was also a broad thinker. Like, I grew up watching her read Kant. And I know.
Respect.
And like, she would read things like that, and it didn't occur to me that wasn't necessarily normal until much later. And so she had a bigger perspective, but she was still pretty entrenched in some dogmatic stuff of Protestantism. And so when I got pregnant with my first child, Sydney, I thought, well, I'll convert to Catholicism. And I really gave it a go. I got confirmed. I did the whole thing when I was pregnant. And then at the end of my pregnancy, as I was finishing it, my mom died suddenly. And everything just changed for me. I don't know. I started praying differently. My faith shifted in a way that I still don't quite understand, but I knew that something was different. And I don't know if it was my mother guiding me or what, that her perspective probably opened up a lot when she crossed over.
Right.
And so it just changed me. And I ended up leaving that marriage. I converted to Catholicism and then I left the marriage. And because I knew that I couldn't play along with this for my own daughter. Once I had her, I thought, I have to teach her what I believe, which is a much bigger perspective. And around that time, too, was when the Catholic Church had that big...
all the abuse scandals.
Yes. So it was like mid-2000s. And I was like, yuck. And I couldn't get there with it. And her dad really wanted me to be something that I wasn't. And he said to me one day, I don't want you to teach our daughter what you believe. And I thought, I can't do this.
Well, that, my friend, is too bad.
Yeah. So I left. And I took a lot of flack for that because we got married Catholic. And it was really tough.
You realized from your own spiritual intuition that you didn't want to go from one box to another box.
Yeah, I really
You said,
did.
I'm switching roles into the rigidity, into more rigidity. And I think, important disclaimer here, there's amazing Catholics out there, obviously.
Of course.
And there's amazing Methodists out there.
Yes.
But
I am not denying.
might not be for us. That's all.
It's just not
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. I'm kind of a free spirit. I have to march to my own drum, and I like knowing that I can go straight to God. I don't have to go through an intermediary. I don't have to show up to church. And that's where this has all evolved for me. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that it can be as simple as tuning into the God within me.
Right.
And that's been what I've developed into in my own spiritual awakenings. I'll pluralize that.
Beautiful. No, that's beautiful. And that's a legit plural too. When we recorded your podcast in your home, your design aesthetic is reflective of that. Like you have the really cool, huge altar of like everybody. To me, that's why we're friends. It's like, I was like, oh, there's Ganesh, there's Buddha, there's Jesus, there's Mother Mary, there's, indigenous wisdom, there's beads, there's feathers. It was just like, okay, cool. This is my people.
Yeah, well, we're imposed upon with all these rules that you can have this, but you can't have that too. And that's been a big opening up for me. Like, I want anyone listening to this to know that you have permission to make it whatever you want it to be. And other people may have something to say about that, but that's their own stuff getting in the way. So can we just find our own space to, I do like this speaks to me, and I do like this speaks to me, and so what? So what? So
dare we say that's the only voice worth listening to?
Dare we say? Yes.
Guidance.
Dare we say? And I think driving here, I thought, what do I really want to talk about? And I think it was about the simplicity of it all. We tend to make it more complicated than it has to be, and worried about right or wrongs and self-doubt and should I do this, or now I need this to make me feel okay inside. And the simplicity is what I keep going back to. When I feel confused by something, I know that's not for me. And when it doesn't sit right, I just have to sit with it and think, okay, I can let that go. And I love simplicity. I don't like feeling confused. I don't like overwhelming. I don't like even some of the trendy spiritual topics these days, like integrating your shadow and all these phrases that we hear all the time. Those can get really confusing to me. And if it's just coming back to yourself and being present in the moment, for me, that's what it's really all about. And in college, when I was taking those classes, I learned about Ram Dass, and he's such a important figure for me.
Sure.
And I have Be Here Now tattooed on my arm. Right. And when I heard that in college, it just always really stayed with me. And that to me became the real goal, not to figure it out, because we're really not going to necessarily figure it out. Like, you think you have the answer for a minute, but We don't know. We don't know.
It's really well said, and I think that's important, practical, because you're right. Like, I think when you do start to open up, as you have, when you do start to kind of, my little fun phrase is spiritual buffet line.
Yeah.
You know, I like the spiritual buffet line image. Like, oh yeah, noodles, hamburgers, tiramisu. You know, try a bunch of different stuff, but the point you're making about the complexity, I think, is very legit, because I think a lot of people that are new to it, it's overwhelming.
It is.
You know, my teacher also used to say, don't get indigestion.
I like that.
Don't just, it's good to study, but you can read too much. Now we're in, obviously infinite content world where there's just, you can never, stop. You could just literally read your entire life and you'd read one millionth. And, coming back to the simplicity of just being in this moment, touching your being, capital B, from a place of love, capital L. It's like, I love that. Let's not overcomplicate this.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal, getting to the simplicity of the now and treating life as the church that it is. And how amazing it is that we're even sitting here. We're sitting here talking into microphones. Like, if we let our minds be blown about the most simple things, that are so amazing.
Yeah.
I got asked recently, I went to something with Justin not too long ago, and it was a very religious crowd. I don't know that it was a certain religion, but they were Christian, hardcore, middle America Christian, and wonderful people. But afterward, we were visiting with everyone, and a younger woman was chatting with me. She was really on fire for the Lord, and she asked me, well, where do you go to church? And I really didn't know what to say at that moment except the truth. And I think, when we're in those situations, you can want to tailor your answer to what they want to hear to make everybody more comfortable. But ultimately, that's not true. And so I had to speak the truth, and her surprise on her face, I was able to say, really, I don't go to church. Life is my church every moment. And I want to come from a place of love. Love is my religion. And I used to go to yoga sometimes for it. And she just looked kind of surprised. Like she didn't understand. But to me, all those things are, again, searching outside of ourselves for a place to find God. Is it going to be in this next job? Is it going to be in this next book I read? Is it going to be, am I going to go to Peru and do ayahuasca? Is it going to be at church? And we've put all these external things on it, and it's such a cliche, but it is an inside job, and it is a matter of just sitting and letting your stuff go, relinquishing control, and surrendering.
Amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's clear also that you're not new to this, because
oh, thanks.
You can really shift into it. And so I love how you put that. And I wish I could have seen that young lady's face when you said yoga studios, and
oh, I know,
the beating heart of all creation is where my church
Bless
is.
her heart. I know she was. Yeah, she had her own ideas about it, which is fine. That's part of the growth. This didn't happen for me overnight. And I've been through judgment and all sorts of things, self-judgment, judgment outside myself. And it takes time. I used to be I don't want to say that too rigid. I just used to be pretty regimented in my habits and practices. But I needed that to get to where I was. And now I'm able to look at all the parts of my life and thank them, even the parts where I was blackout drunk. Those were all things I needed to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And I've reached a peace with my past and a peace with life that feels really good now and just aligned.
And that's clear. That's why I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank you.
And among other reasons. But yeah, there's a few things directions I want to go here. One is there's a Thich Nhat Hanh, I'm sure you're obsessed with too, the late great, where there was a recent article in Tricycle magazine, the Buddhist magazine, and it was talking about how was kind of defending his intellectual depths. You know, he wrote 100 books.
Wow.
And he protested Vietnam War, which I'm sure you're aware of. You know, he was friends with Martin Luther King, and he just has this incredible, he's this giant of humanity. And I think what the author of this article was saying was, you know, almost like it's a shame that he's been kind of oversimplified as like the smiling breathe in, smiling breathe out, like looking at a flower, you know. And she was kind of going, we're trivializing his greater depths and complexity. And I honor that. But what came up for me is, you know, kind of what we were talking about, where it's like, and at the same time, his simplicity and his accessibility is actually his magic. You know, it's like, it's amazing that he wrote tomes, and, you know, like he wrote a lot on some of the ancient sutras. Like he was a textual commentator, you know, but it's like, but that's only one part of him. The magic of him is the fact that he was able to just look at a sunflower and see the universe in it and explain that to us, you know, and children and people who are from other faith traditions to be able to get that across. So I'm kind of in this, you know, we're both religious studies / film people. Yeah. And so, you know, I read a few textbooks and they're cool, but it's like they can miss the mark. You know, they can be too heady, they can be too intellectual, and it's like, you know, I think that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to find that balance of like accessibility and depth. Yeah,
I agree, because it can just be this constant filling, and then what? Where are you? And I do believe in standing up for what's right, like he did. But where are you coming from? Because that's the important work. I was just listening to Michael Singer today. There's a really wonderful series called Living from a Place of Surrender on Audible. And in the last episode, he was just talking about protest and where you're coming from. And do you have harmony within and harmony at home? And if you can't create that, then you're just going to be angry when you're protesting. Yeah. Which I've done my share of protesting. Yeah. I was very involved with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And that's a tough one, because you don't see progress very well, especially in Texas. And there's a lot of tragedy, and you just keep the uphill battle. But, you know, that they stress self-care so much, and they stress that simplicity of harmony within yourself. Otherwise, you're so full of fire and rage that life isn't available. Yeah, you're not available to the beauty that is life. Yeah. And there's always going to be both sides and the whole thing. There's always going to be that. I mean, like, at least I think there is. Maybe there is. Here
in Polarity Land? Here in this dual plane of existence?
Yeah. So what are you going to focus on? So while I was listening to that today, I went for a walk, and I usually just enjoy my walks. They're so nice. It was a lovely morning. It was like 80 degrees. And as I'm walking out in my neighborhood, which is lovely, I saw somebody didn't clean up after their dog. And I was like, yuck. And so I kept going, and I saw it again. And I saw like 6 times that someone didn't clean up after their dog. And I thought, finally, I was kind of mad. I was like, what are people doing? And suddenly I thought, you know what? There's so much gorgeous grass around me, dewy grass. There's flowers. There's big fat bumblebees. There's clouds like brushing the sky. And I'm here focused on shit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so
the grass is happy.
Who am I to say? Maybe those particular spots needed extra fertilization. Who am I to say? I don't know, but I'm letting it get to me. And so that's the practice too of what am I seeing? What am I focusing on? Am I reactive, or am I able to let go and live in this joyful, more simple space? And then I thought, you know, next time I could bring bags with me and clean it up, you know. And so you can take action too, but it just was funny to me. It was just a funny little representation of you get what you focus on, and that can bring that inner disharmony or harmony. And so where are you going to go.
Totally.
Keep it simple. Breathe in and out and be in the moment.
Well put. It's like, I love that image. But it's in the book I write about how, like, oh, you're mad about people being hungry on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You can help. You can actually go to a food bank and make some sandwiches. And so, channeling that, the first is awareness, to your point, to your story here. It's like, actually you had to notice that in yourself. You had to notice the resistance, and then you shift out. It's a zoom out, and then you can.
Yes. And there's a line in there that I've learned too. My partner is in recovery. He's in active recovery, and he's open about that. And
Justin
Wren, who has been a guest on your podcast, and everyone go listen.
And we love Justin.
And so I joined Al-Anon I would go to Al-Anon meetings, and that helped me so much, because when you do see that person on the side of the road, you want to fix it, you want to help, you want to save them. And in Al-Anon, you realize that that's not really up to you. We don't know their path, and there is no saving them. And watching Justin relapse and then go to treatment was extremely hard, because as your partner too, you really want to save that person. And I can only imagine how difficult it is if it's your child. But you ultimately can't save them. I was just thinking about this. It's funny you brought it up. I was driving here, and there was a woman sleeping under the bridge, and she didn't even have any stuff really with her. She looked pretty, and she was laying there just asleep. And I thought, I felt a stab in my heart. But I could buy her an apartment. I could give her a job. I could give her food. I could give her a wardrobe. I could do all the things for her, but that is no guarantee. So that's still that letting go of control. We don't know the path for everybody else, but what are you going to do for yourself to take action where you can? Certainly. I could go volunteer and provide meals to people that want them, but I can't focus on that control of I'm going to save you.
Right.
And so the first 3 tenets of the first 3 steps in AA are the same in Al-Anon. It's basically, I can't, God can, I'll let God. And so that's the basis of surrender. And so I come back to that, and that's again simplicity. It's so simple. You can do what you can, but there's no guarantee.
It's a subtle tightrope to walk between
is.
Indifference and over control.
Yeah. And maybe all that she needs is you to listen to her non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
And really that was the massive paradox of Al-Anon, was that when I did lean into my own self-love, keep it very simple, stop trying to fix and control and let go, things fix themselves. It's mind-blowing. And that's how life is. And it's such a paradox, because we think we have to reach outward, but it's really reaching inward to our self-love and our foundation that we create and the harmony within, and it spills out into the world. Yeah.
How were you nervous about what we're going to talk about? This is amazing.
Well, sometimes I feel like it can go a lot of different directions. It's getting complicated. It's that head stuff.
Well, and I think also, to come back to your story, you kind of had eras, if I may.
So many. I don't even know how many. Yes.
But it's really inspiring too. I mean, I think a lot of people think that you have to get locked into this one thing. That's another lesson I think that you can teach very well.
Sure can.
We're constantly evolving,
Yep.
constantly changing.
Yep.
And the more you're stepping into yourself, the more you're reducing the friction between those shifts.
Yeah. And sometimes you just don't know why you're saying yes to something.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned. It's taken me time to learn that, I said yes to that because that was growth in my voice, in my speaking my authenticity. And I didn't realize it. I had a nervous breakdown writing that album because I was an independent rock and roll artist for a while.
I was going to say, you started in music.
Yeah. I didn't really start in music. I really did radio and fashion, and I owned a clothing store for a while. And so in my late 30s,
Yeah.
People said, let's learn instruments. And so I did. And so in my early 40s, I ended up.
That doesn't make any sense because you're mid-30s right now.
I know. It's confusing considering
Really
I'm turning.
confusing. The fact that you're younger than me.
Thank you. That goes a long way. So in my 40s, I ended up on a path that I never saw coming. And I just decided to embrace it and learn what I needed to learn. I knew it was outside my comfort zone. So I thought, okay, well, here goes. Let's see what I learn. And in my late 40s, I was able to look back and say, oh, I was expanding my voice and my authentic truth and being able to speak it stronger. And I didn't realize I wasn't doing that for for however long, 47 years. And so as I reached 50 and I have approached this new half century, I just grew really tired of self-doubt and all the other things that go on in your head. And I have been on a path to let those things go and really embrace joy. And like I said, really having that foundation to come back to. I forget sometimes, like with the dog poop today. And, but then you come back to it and now I'm understanding that has created the foundation for me to live in more of a life of service, which I'm so grateful to Justin for, because that was a dream of mine to help people around the world, but I never understood how it would come to pass. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it was in my life.
Yeah.
And now it just feels so good. And I'm starting a new company, a water bottle company. I don't know if I've told you that. And that's a 1-for-1.
Is that tied to Fight for Her?
No, it's going
Y'all
to
are
give back.
Busiest human beings.
But I'm really not.
Phone.
I'm really not.
No.
Yeah.
Good busy.
Yeah. Well, Fight for Her is our nonprofit initiative alongside Fight for the Forgotten to help the women that are in the communities that we serve. And so that's been very exciting. That's my dream come true. So we'll be developing that as we build the hospital mainly and provide a maternity
center.
She's
been doing over there.
Yes.
For context,
broke ground.
If you didn't listen to Justin's episode, pause this episode and go back to episode 3. No. And he's also been on this guy, what's his name? Joe something, Joe Rogan, like 10 times. Anyway, Justin, the star of The Ultimate Fighter, he supports, it's a collective also. And I want to be careful how I frame this, by the way, because he's so articulate about the fact that it's such a equal exchange.
Yes.
It's like the last thing he ever wants to frame it as, which would be inaccurate, is like them coming in, swooping in and like fixing this thing. Because have they helped the pygmies buy some land in Africa that needed it? Yes. Has he learned more about life and philosophy and caring and community from them? Yes. So Justin is this extremely like humble person who also happens to run an incredible humanitarian organization. Amy's a huge part of it, where you guys have empowered a people. It's kind of like, for me, I'm like, wow, Justin, I feel good when I like give a homeless person like $5. I'm like, like, oh, let me break my arm, patting my shoulder on the back.
Right.
But he's like been in Africa for 15 years.
He's there right now, actually.
He's literally like digging. He's wiping his brow from digging a hole that a column will go in for the new healthcare system.
He lives it. But you know what I want to say about that too is it's easy to look at him and be like, oh, his life's focus is that. But when about a year ago, they asked me, they meaning him and his business coach, and they said, will you step in and do some work with Fight for the Forgotten and help with the administrative stateside stuff? And I said, I will, on one condition, that Justin puts his recovery first. Because what is it all or any of it if you're not surrendering and really creating that foundation that you can give from? And so I think that's easy to forget when you look at someone doing this work. And so you have to create that. And that's where I'm coming from too. And now I'm able to give from a place of wholeness and a place of fullness and not feel depleted. And that's that self-care, that connection to God, that connection to spirit, and that foundation of peace. And even when there's grief, and one thing he does with the community too, it's like the woman under the bridge. He is there for it, but he just listens. And then what do they want? Oh, you want healthcare. All right, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And so there are...
hey, you guys need to make some money. Here's the land, but you guys are going to farm this shit.
And same with...
They do.
Yeah, and they do. And same with Fight for Her. We talked to we have an amazing in-country director. She lives in Italy. Her name is Zoe. I can't sing her praises highly enough. And so she got all the women together and said, what do you want? And the women said, we want to earn some money and have our own money for the first time in our lives. And so she said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, we want to do hair and we want to sew. So we created a trading center. We got them sewing machines. Like, we set them up for success. And the Ugandan government ended up taking notice, and they invited all the women. It was like 30-something women, I think, at that particular moment. And they invited the women to come to a women's entrepreneurship training, and the women loved it. And so they're getting these amazing opportunities that, I don't know, it just makes my heart burst, because that's what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they did. And now I'm just so excited to see what they create, and it just makes me happy, like beyond compare, because as a mother of 2 daughters, I can relate to wanting to give your daughters a better life. They want their daughters to be a doctor, or have the opportunity to go to school and not have to spend 4 hours a day fetching water in a treacherous walk. Is that too much to ask? Like, how can we help? And so, taking it piece by piece, giving opportunity where it's desired, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's
really inspiring to me, and I've been lucky enough to be able to contribute on a local level, but you guys are kind of like, Justin's also, his story is crazy about how he got involved, and
yes,
it's also a case of surrender too, to your point earlier.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't have to be across the world. It can be right here, like we were talking about, at home. What can we do right now? It's not an either or. Like, I want to do both.
Yeah.
I want to create the best world here in Austin, Texas, or wherever I'm living, and in my family, and have that peace and harmony. Like, it, again, just like the buffet line, you can pick both. Right. You can put both on your plate, or you can put one, or you can put this. It doesn't matter.
And also, y'all need to just accept the fact that it's a really cool thing.
It is a really cool thing. I feel so honored.
I think there's a lot of people too that, I think, not to be like too egoic and judgmental, we've been on this like high level vibe the whole episode so far. I think it's really special. The reason I like to kind of spotlight you guys is because there are people in a higher socioeconomic level who haven't understood that that's really much more fulfilling than collecting material things. And that's okay. It's like, oh, there's the little, it's like on the audio meter, it's like, there's a little ego coming. There's a little,
totally.
And so I'm not,
you just read my mind, actually. Yeah.
But it's like, I think that's something that is so special about you guys, is like, you have realized that, like, he's gotten to a place in his career where it's like, well, what are we really doing here?
Yeah. What are we really doing here?
And so, and I love too that you said, if he's focusing on his internal, because it's a balance too.
It is a balance.
You're a great partner for him.
But I do understand what you're saying too, when you look at other people and think, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. And it's a lesson for me. Drop my judgment. I don't know their path. I don't know their struggles. I don't know what's really going on. So,
and also, speaking of Ram Dass from the Hindu perspective, the reincarnation angle, sometimes people, it sounds like, and I'm not tied into the super conscious awareness, at least all the time.
If you were all the time.
But what it sounds like is you have a very active incarnation, and then you can have an inactive incarnation, and then you can have, you're this huge helper, and then you're the monk in the cave. So as soon as you start to put expectations on someone, you're kind of violating that samsaric unfolding, if you will.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
Here's the deal. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So when you can get to that place, like, I don't know, just like, I'm going to do what I can do right here. And so like that practice of just releasing and not judging, and who knows, maybe that is serving some way that I can't see. Most likely it is.
Probably
Probably.
at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I am also a big fan of Michael Singer, and he always is pointing out we are on a little speck, a little rock that's floating around in this gigantic cosmos. It's taken 13.8 billion years for us to get here. So, like, chill out. We like, I don't know. And I think getting to that comfort of I don't know is a massive leap. And that's the leap that from college to now, like, that's the leap. I don't know. And what I do know is that this feels good, and I love people, and I want to live the best I can and make the biggest impact I can in a good way. And so there we are.
You're doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, Bob, for some reason, I listen to a ton of true crime. Like,
my wife's obsessed with it.
I know. And I'm like, am I trying to ground myself? Like, what am I doing? But I don't know what it is. And so, like, I'm not like just trapped in esoteric land or anything like that. I mean, it's all part of it.
Oh, it's not so bad to be trapped in esoteric land. Take it from me. No, my wife loves true crime talk. No, I know what you mean. I mean, and I like Texas Longhorn football.
There you
for
go.
example.
There you go.
It's all it's the profound and the mundane. What I do want to ask you too is, you hinted at your age earlier, and because that's become a part of
my message.
Your message,
absolutely.
And so
it has.
Like the surface level jokey part of me wants to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because you're defying the laws of physics. And selfishly, let me help me do that. But, more broadly, more spiritually, more heartfelt, like, it's really amazing your work in that world. And so I just wanted to make sure that we go there because
cool. Fine with me.
Yeah.
I want to be a living example that anyone can live their best life at any age. Some of your best days haven't even happened yet. And we can get wrapped up in this notion that our best has passed us by, and it hasn't. Some of them haven't happened yet. Believe it. It's not a matter of hope or anything else. Tune into yourself and just keep going. That is my MO, is living it and being an example to anyone, but also to my own children. And I think I became really aware when I had 2 daughters of what am I showing them? And they don't always act like they notice. But then something will happen and they'll write an essay or something, and you're suddenly like, holy shit, they are noticing what I'm showing them and what I'm living. And that was a challenge for me too, because I left both of their fathers. I left both of their marriages. And I know that's something I just have to take responsibility for, and I've had to answer them honestly, not too deep. I answer honestly, but I don't get into the weeds of blame or any issues.
Right.
They don't want to hear that anyway. And
it's not their beeswax either.
No, they want to love their father, and I want them to love their father and have a good relationship with each of those guys. And so, but for me, I really believe that we can do it at any age. I like to play with perspective. I like to advance 10 years and think, oh my God, I'm going to look back at myself and think what a hot young bitch I was at 51, And so play with your perspective, because everything is relative. So to a 90-year-old, I look like I am just young and killing it and able-bodied, right? Yeah. And so it's all of these things.
You look like that to a 36-year-old too, sis.
Thank you.
There was a really big TikTok recently. It was like an old dude, I think in his 80s or something. He's drinking a beer and he's like, if you're 30, pretend that you're 90.
Yeah.
And wake up and then, or, you know, it was like a thought exercise.
That zest for life every
and then
day.
be like, oh, wait, no, I actually am. And like the guy was like, I'm actually 90. Like, it's not a thought experience for me, you know, whatever. And people were just in the comments like, oh my gosh, like, you know, there's this tendency, I think internet culture is part of it, where it's like, it's so youth oriented.
Yeah.
I think that kind of feeds into the subconscious. There's all these jokes like, you know, my knees hurt now, or, you know, whatever, like in your 30s. And it's like, I mean, my parents told me a long time ago, they're like, the 30s, 40s are like their favorite decades. So that, you know, so it's like, that's at odds with all of these like 29-year-olds who are like, oh my God. You know? And it's like, listen up, children. It's about to get really exciting, you know.
Yes.
My point.
I feel driven to give them an example. There's lots of women doing it too, like living their best life in their 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And so I feel really driven to embrace that. And why? I guess it's partly having daughters and partly because we've been dealt this hand. So what are you going to do with it? Like, I mean, which are you going to focus on? The poop that's not cleaned up or the beautiful grass, right?
Right.
Like, again, and that just, I could get up every day. And last year, and focus on what hurts. Last year, something happened to my feet and they started hurting so bad. Every single day, every step I took when I got up in the morning, they were killing me. Bob, I was miserable. It made me want to cry. I couldn't really exercise. And I still don't know what exactly happened, but it's gotten better. And I mean, I tried a lot of different things and it was just really challenging. I thought, oh, is this what I have for the rest of my life? And when you're in pain, that's a whole nother animal. And so I felt like I was gaining that understanding of, okay, this is life in pain and it gives me a compassion for other people. And you're trying to cope. And so luckily that has passed. And I don't know what the bigger message was, but it's easy to focus on those things and it can get you depressed. I had some depressive episodes last year because of that. And I had to really work to gain more perspective and lean on my foundations of spirituality. So we do have ups and downs. It's not a linear path, of course, and you're going to have challenges along the way. Am I grateful for my feet hurting? Not really, but whatever, it did teach me something. And I just want people to know that it's not always smooth sailing. It can be challenging, but it's how you handle those challenges and how you come back to your own truth ultimately. And so I was still determined to show up as my best self. And that's what I have continued to take steps in, no pun intended.
Totally. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm sorry you endured that. And also at the same time, it's like,
it was weird.
It seems like that's a little poke from, you know, the world of form. I mean, a lot of my heroes, I'm hesitant to assign labels to myself without being too cliche of like, no, it's not a label. I tend to lean non-duality. So, as you know, not two, right? So non-dual systems typically have not typically, they do. They have a transcendental view of things to where this quote unquote reality, which is dualistic, which is polarized, which is oppositional, is illusory or dreamlike. And so the goal is to undo your attachment to or undo your association with in some capacity. It's, the English language has difficulty with the word detachment, for example, because it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean like world denialism. Sometimes you'll see a Nisargadatta quote and he's like, it all doesn't matter, whatever. And it's like, well, he's speaking in Marathi. Like in English, it's a little different. It doesn't mean like, don't give your mom flowers on Mother's Day. It's like you're still playing the role, to use the Gita language. You're still the actor, but it's just a play, like it's just a dream. And so it's kind of balancing that. And so, for me, I think that's one thing. Allison was here, our good buddy, who introduced me to you guys. And, she's like a wellness queen, just like you. And I think it was important to hear some of her stuff. And like, I've learned so much from her about like, I think I'm coming out of like renunciant model of it and starting to kind of, especially like 36 now, and now like entering the second half of 30s for me, it's like, and 4-year-old boy, you know, it's like, okay, I do need to take care of this vehicle, you know, I'm not the vehicle. I'm not the body. Ultimately, the mystics are clear that we're the spirit beyond it. And at the same time, you know, your foot's going to get hurt. You're going to have a, you know, crappy shoulder. And so, but you need to, you know, maintain it. You got to get an oil change.
You sure do. and you know, there's just sort of okay, where can I find growth here? Like with whatever's happening with this hand I've been dealt that I think I'm living in. I don't know. Maybe it's all a dream. I don't know. I certainly have experiences sometimes that I'm like, yep, this is all a dream. Yeah. But like, I smashed my finger the other day, got smashed in the door, my middle finger. And
man, this is a kid show.
It was bad, really bad. And like, I immediately knew I had to go to the ER. I had to get 5 stitches, including one through my nail, which is weird. And it broke.
Careful out
there. So I know. No, it was in Utah. I'm in a mastermind group right now.
Cool.
And so it was in Utah. So anyway, I'm like, damn. And then I was in a lot of pain, you know? And so it happened on day 2 of a 5-day retreat. And the women there were phenomenal, took care of me. And, you know, I just thought, well, where can I find growth here, right? I'm in pain and all this. And I realized we were working on speaking and public speaking. And I realized I tend to over-prepare. I tend to write too much and get up in my head. And this was an opportunity for me to get more in my body, more in my heart, and really trust and release that. I mean, it's one thing to do a podcast, right? You can edit it out. But live speaking, not as much, and not at all. And so it was that little growth and lesson that I used this finger to mean to me. And I don't know if that's why it happened or not, but that was the meaning that I took. And so when we have these bodies and we have these things happen, I don't know if everything happens for a reason, but I do know that we can choose to find some growth and a lesson in it, and choose to make it mean something, and step into, okay, well, here we are. I'm in a lot of pain. Life is making me slow down. And I have the time to slow down. So am I really going to embrace it or not? And so I had to slow down. Once I got home, the pain got worse, and I didn't know how I was going to get my stitches out. This is just the last few weeks. And so I just slowed down. I had to. Justin's in Africa. Gigi wasn't feeling well, so she was chilling. And that's my 15-year-old.
And summer.
It's
in Austin.
Yeah.
It's
nothing
hot.
pressing.
Nothing's really going on. Yeah.
No, so I thought, well, am I going to fight this and be miserable, or am I just going to surrender again? You know, so we just have these opportunities to learn all the time, whatever it looks like. And that's part of the growth mindset, that when you're in that at absolutely any age, that's what you're looking for. That's the green grass and the beautiful clouds. That's what you're looking for, these growth moments. And that's beautiful to me. I love it. I think I'm a bit of like a growth mindset junkie, and that's what I needed in a partner too. With Justin, it is that way. He is forever growth mindseted, and that's what I want. That's what I wanted in my first marriage, when I wanted to expand my belief in religion and teach that to my daughter, but I was with someone that didn't want to grow in that way. And so I knew ultimately we were not going to be compatible. And so I had to leave, which that was my path there, not everybody's. So anyway, I lost track of what we're talking about, but yeah.
No, you're right on. I mean, what I was going to say is kind of in terms of wellness and, you know, self-preservation, body preservation, and so on, it sounds like your spirituality and your growth mindset really is the foundation of it.
I think
everything else is external to that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not focused on the growth aspect or the learning aspect from each moment, you know, it doesn't matter how many, you know, cucumber slices on the eyelids or whatever it is, you know.
Damn right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's what keeps you youthful. And I don't mean looking like you're 25. I mean alive, vibrant, vital. It's that growth mindset and that embracing of letting go of I should have this figured out by now, and trusting that I can have a beginner mindset or I can have a growth mindset, and not being afraid to look stupid, to just start and it not be perfect, which I have perfectionist tendencies that I've had to let go of. And I like being a musician in my 40s in Austin, Texas. Like what? That's humbling because there are so many incredible musicians here, but they were so kind to me because I was able to just say, hey, I'm just figuring it out. And I remember once I performed a show with a band that was put together with Kevin McKinney, who was the lead singer of Soul Hat. And one of the guys from Fastball was in it. I think it was Miles Zuniga. And so we were playing at Lambert's and I was trying something new. I decided that I would just really simplify my guitar playing, and I was partners with my drummer. And so he was playing drums and I was like, we're just going to do a 2-piece and we're going to see how it goes. And he was like, I think you're fucking crazy, but let's go. He was a good sport. And so
let's surrender.
Let's surrender. And so I bought an octave pedal. So I was just playing my guitar kind of like a bass, and it worked for the most part. It worked. And it was fun and interesting and different. And it was a growth moment for me, and it pushed me out of my comfort zone. Music was always really, really challenging for me to get up on stage and sing and play guitar. And so after I got off the stage, Miles came up to me and he said, I can see what you're trying to do here, and I really appreciate it. And good job. And I was like, oh my God, I felt just so validated because I was a beginner at it, but someone was kind to me. And so, it
clicked that you were trying to push yourself.
Yeah. And so I think that you can inspire people in ways that you don't see coming. And I mean, not that I was inspiring Miles at that moment, but maybe somebody else in the audience. And I know plenty of people that have come up to me like, I could never do that. And I'm like, yeah, actually you could. You just try. And you just accept that you're not going to be the greatest at it and you go for it. And that applies to anything in your life, whether it's serving communities, whether it's just being a parent. You don't know what you're doing. So just treat it as this is a spot I'm going to grow. And that vitality and vibrancy and learning is what comes through in your energy. Like, I'm here to learn. I don't know everything. There's a big ego drop in there, and you're able to just live life and be in a childlike learning mindset. That's fucking youthful. Snaps. I can't snap with his finger, but hell yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I could cut on that for that clip because that's kind of like your thesis.
That's a soundbite. Can I get a doctorate for that?
That's your yes.
Yep.
From me, it will be a phony.
Oh my God, you should give them. You should give them.
No. It's a tangible way that you describe it. I think what kind of came up for me while you're talking about that is like just what's the inherent framework around humans that make us so comfortable and like resistant to that, like because it's like what you're trying to do, it almost feels like you're trying to actively just like sledgehammer that. You're just like, oh, there it is, perfect, like that's exactly what I'm going to go into.
I think it's fear.
It is.
It's that beast of fear that we let get the best of us so many times. I'm going to look
so
stupid.
Scary.
I'm scared of how people are going to perceive me. It's scary. What is scary? You're not going into a bear infested forest, that's scary, I suppose. But like you're talking about picking up a ukulele or something.
I can't start a podcast.
Yeah. It's like,
wait, I can?
Yeah, you can. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, just start. Just do it. The first time out is never going to be the best. You're always going to improve. Bob, I was speaking for one of the first times live in front of a group like a year and a half ago or something like that. And I was there the day before with the group. They were having this sort of spiritual moment. And there was a woman there leading like a sound bath or something. She had this deck. And she said, everyone can draw a card from this deck. And I was like, I wanted to do so good to talk to these women. You know, I was like really in my like head about it. Like I said, I need to write less and come from my heart more, but I was in my head about it. And I was like, I'm going to do so good. You know, like I'm not a beginner. I'm not. And so I drew a card. I like focused on the deck and I like drew a card. It said inexperienced. I'm not even kidding. It was like some angel deck or something. I was like, inexperienced. And I just had to laugh. And I was like, that's right. You have to start somewhere. You're going to be inexperienced at some point. So that's so attractive. How do you feel when you see someone that's 70 years old who started playing the trumpet and you're like, oh my God, they started at 70, start weightlifting. They start, you know, and you're like, that's so cool. You can too. Hey.
Sam Jackson, I think, started his acting career at 40.
Yeah, there's so many wonderful
Sold
stories
$1
like
million
that, right?
Tickets, yeah.
Vera Wang designed her first wedding dress at like 40 something.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Louise Hay's first book was like 50, 52,
Stop.
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, really. So, you know what? We all have our blossom path. So it's okay. If you're dreaming of getting on stage, okay. Put aside that fear, because when we really get into it, you know, you think, what's really holding me back?
Well, we're also all 13 billion years old, you know?
That's right.
So that's really,
that's right.
What is age really?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretend, do an experiment. Pretend that you're a 15-year-old on TikTok and you're just playing some songs. I mean, who cares, right? They wouldn't let it hold them back. So why are you?
Totally.
And anyway, I think those are some basic keys to feeling really good at any age and just letting go of the fear and the ego and being in that growth mindset.
Speaking of TikTok, I don't know if you saw this trend. I wanted to write more about it because I thought it was really interesting. It's a little like dystopian, but I feel like you could speak on it really well. There was a moment, I think it was last year, it might have been earlier this year. Anyway, where there was like clips of like 10 preteens, kids going into Sephora, and kind of being rude to the employees but trying on a bunch of like anti-aging stuff.
Oh no.
And it was a little scary.
Oh no.
Like culturally that like there's like kids that are doing that. And you know, I think some of the like the philosophical or like sociological takes are some of this has to do with social media in terms of the pressure to appear young. You know, what my wife said was the mothers or the parents of that generation 10, 12 years ago were kind of had babies that were kind of a part of their social kind of image and persona where it was like, oh, we're dressing up this baby in some brand name clothes and posting
the status
a
of motherhood kind of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is like part of my own image. And it's like this kind of, you know, Black Mirror dystopian thing where like the kids now that's gone into them, you know, genetically or energetically or just mentally from being around these people.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this really matters how we're being perceived. And you know, at the same time, like there's my like, you know, bummer, you know, not to take away from all this brightness, but it's like, it is what you focus on. It's like, that's the negative of it. It's like when people are just so focused on the perception, so afraid and fearful of like how they're being perceived, how they're looking and so on. And it's like, actually, kids, the secret.
You know what, though? I'm glad you brought it up because I'm not immune. If anybody's watching this, I mean, like, my face is peeling a little bit today because I got micro needling with exosomes on Wednesday. You know, I am not immune. I have gotten Listin injectable and I've probably gotten it in my face. I do things to keep myself up, but I am also aware, what am I showing to my daughters there, right? All the other stuff, but are they just going to notice that, you know? And that's tough because I saw it from my mom. My mom, she was very religious to God and all this stuff, but also she had a facelift when she was 50. And I always was like, okay, that's what we do. She had breast implants. She always looked like $1 million, very elegant lady. And so she was a product of her mom, who stressed appearances, and they were older. So my mom came of age probably in the 50s, 60s. And so her mom was like, the 20s, 30s. And so, those are societal patterns that we are in. And I am very much still a product of my environment. And I am conscious of how I look. And Justin worries about it sometimes. And he's like, I don't want you to look like a different person. And I'm like, I don't either. I want to look in the mirror and see something that makes me feel good too. Whereas I am about unconditional self-love, but how do I balance that? And so I'm just glad you brought it up, because I'm not hiding the things that I do.
Yeah.
I talk about them. And on my buffet line, I'm choosing both.
I think that's really beautiful and vulnerable. And the fact that you're driven by this like surrender aspect and like spiritual growth mindset aspect, it's also like, can't a lady look pretty every now and again? Is that okay?
Are we going to fault Dolly Parton? Let's talk about Dolly.
Right. She's like Mother Teresa
Fucking
of
queen.
America.
Yes.
She's
And you know what?
donated $100 million.
Girl's done it all. She wears wigs and she's got the boobs and face and all of it, So it's like, that's an invitation to ask you about your own stuff. Yeah. I'm dealing with mine, and I know that I want to get a facelift in the next few years. And so I have explored that and thought about it, and people think I'm crazy. I got a nose job in my 40s. People thought I was fucking nuts. But my husband at the time was like, whatever you want to do. He was like, okay. And you know what? I like it. And so, again, you're making your own rules. Should I love myself unconditionally? Yes. Do I? Yeah. But I can change what I want to change, and I can show up with a full face of makeup and my hair extensions to your podcast, looking and feeling my best to talk about spirituality.
Totally. It's almost like an act 3, like a friend of mine, Stephanie, she's an ex-Mormon writer and content creator. She's fantastic. And she kind of fell into like mysticism and all this stuff that we love.
Love it.
Her
love demeanor.
Day job is beauty. And so when she first had kind of, the awakenings, as you put it, she started to become disillusioned by some of her work, to say, oh, it's surface level, and, women are kind of covering up what they're not addressing and so on. And then now as she's kind of been in it further, she's like, no, it's ritualistic,
True.
What's so bad about a woman wanting to look better about herself and feel empowered and so on. And so I think, kind of back to the point about the protest, for example, I think that's a good analogy too. It's like, I think there's people at a protest that are causing more a peace protest, who are causing more division. And there are also people at a peace protest who are bringing out more peace.
Yeah.
It's just what their mindset is and what their relationship to source, to all creation is themselves.
Yeah. And finding those spaces that are inner conflict. Like, I'm perfectly okay with it. Mm-hmm. And so if I was in a space of, oh God, I shouldn't be doing this, what are they thinking? That's where you're creating these blocks within yourself to your own joy and your own happiness. I don't have to know exactly why I want to look the way I look. I just do. And am I at peace with it? Am I okay with it?
I'll share mine. Mine is like drinking.
Yeah.
Like, I have zero guilt about drinking.
Good.
And there's so many amazing stories of people who no longer drink. And I am like the biggest cheerleader with the megaphone and like I am doing with the pom-poms for everyone that is a harmful practice for. And I might have a couple drinks every once in a while.
Drinks.
And and my joke is it's my Alan Watts era.
Good.
I'm just like,
I love
it. Like having a drink. It's, like talking Buddhist philosophy. And anyway,
I love alcohol. I have drank all the alcohol.
Yeah.
And now I am 2.5 years without any.
Yeah, and it's not for everyone, and it's and it's for some, and it's very harmful for certain people and some families. and generational whatever, and
It was
you know,
just an
and it's
experiment
also
for me.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all, a friend of mine goes alcohol ceremony. He goes, we're gonna have an alcohol. So
I've heard that.
ayahuasca ceremony. Oh, we're just gonna have alcohol.
Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
like, why not be intentional, and why not
Yeah,
really love the choices that you're making, whatever they are?
yeah. Let's
They-
use this in a way to connect with other people and
Mhm.
connect with ourselves in a deeper way. You
That's
know,
right.
as opposed to, I need a drink. You know, I
That's
think
right.
that's where you start to tiptoe into the unhealthiness. Of it.
And then you have an opportunity to say, why do I need a drink, you know, and go a little bit deeper and explore that. For me, it was just really out of my comfort zone to not have a drink. And so I thought, oh gosh, there's probably an area for growth there.
Yeah.
So let me
Let
go
me
for a while.
sledgehammer this comfort zone,
Yeah,
Amy style.
I did. And I thought, really, I've drank enough. Let's be real. I mean, I have drank a lot in my lifetime. And so I just thought, what the hell?
You had a good
Let me
run.
give it a, yeah. And I don't know if it's forever.
Yeah.
I like alcohol. I do miss things about it and the communal aspect of it. And so, but I'm feeling really good right now. So I'm just fine. I bought some non-alcoholic, like the Ritual NA spirits. They're so good. And you can make a really nice mocktail, you know?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I had something I was gonna tell you about drinking. I forgot. It's
Well,
not my-
the fixation, I think that's a good mental practice, just to say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm noticing that I want it. You know,
Yeah.
I'll have a few, even I'll do a few nights in a row, and then I can go 2 weeks and I won't even think about it. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? I was like, because we're in summer and we're like, when's pre-K? Like, we're obsessed with this child. He's such a sweet
so
baby.
cute.
He's a cherubic
Going to
young man.
pre-K. Oh
And-
my gosh.
And he's a lot of energy, and he takes some energy, and I'm like to do a bunch of shit for myself. Anyway, we love the guy, but we're kind of like, school's starting, and so I'm kind of like, oh, I'll have like another drink, you know. And but I told her, I said, you know, I've been going out a little bit, and I was like, but I know I'm good because I cannot think about this stuff for 2 weeks,
right.
You know. And so, and if I was, I think I would make that choice if there was a self inquiry of hitting day 3 and going,
Yeah.
okay, you know, or you know, it's definitely the next
That's
day.
an awareness.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
awareness
that's stepping
practice.
into the awareness of what am I needing
Right.
that's outside myself. And those are the moments when you're like, okay, that's where I have to take stock. I think, you know,
outside of myself.
outside myself.
Yeah.
That's where you have to take stock. And I interviewed a cannabis coach. He is fabulous. Next time he comes to town, you guys would have the best conversation. And he really coaches people to say, oh, you need that at the end of your workday. And so he encourages people to stop using cannabis. And then I said, what happens then? He said, well, they quit their job. They have full life overhauls because they're oftentimes
Sedating.
yes,
quality.
numbing
Yeah.
to the reason that they feel like they need it. And so when you remove those things, then you make some life changes. So there's like a balance in there, right? And
I was a cannabis coach in college.
I bet you were.
But it was for using more cannabis.
Well, he's about consciously using
Yeah,
it.
that's great.
Ryan,
I think that's really important.
his last name is escaping me, but he's
There's
fantastic.
a lot of cannabis users, and of which I am one. Government, if you're listening, that I think do kind of de-emphasize its potential for that kind of level of sedation. It's, oh, it's not addictive, man. It's okay, or it's not, and it really isn't very harmful. Just for the record, but I think that practice is very useful to say.
I have a partner that I've seen get very, very, very addicted. Like that's when people say, "What's your thing?" to him, he's like everything, but really he can weed. Like he's full addict. So yeah, it's possible.
I mean, I lived high for 5 years, like in college. I was like,
really?
stoned everywhere. So, and it was like, okay, like
oh my God.
I'm good now on this for a while. So I took years off, you know.
Yeah.
But now I'm back, and it's like, I don't know.
Take it or
again.
leave
It's
it,
like, yeah,
right?
I could literally not think about it for a month, and so
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like we went to the art gallery party on Friday night. We went to a friend's house after. We had a joint, And it was like, we had this
Fun.
amazing conversation.
Sounds so fun.
My friend read Rumi, and it was like,
Yeah.
this is great.
Oh, your friend read Rumi. Oh,
I know.
yeah. It
It was like that
sounds
kind of
wonderful.
after hours hang.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I heard this analogy. You might know where it came from. I don't know who said it. But they said basically that in life, it's like we're in a huge kitchen and you're going to make a dish, a cake, a pie. And every ingredient known to man is in, or known anywhere in the universe, is in this kitchen. So really, the dish that you're making is your life. You have the choice of every single thing. Are you going to put, something spicy in there, or are you going to put some sweetness? Are you going to put, like, we're creating something and you have all the options. So what's it going to be? It's going to be your own creation. There doesn't have to be a right way or a wrong way.
There's a real power to that.
I think so.
You're the chef.
Like, and those options aren't going away. Alcohol's not going to disappear from the world. Neither is weed.
Right.
So if you want to quit, you have to find your own peaceful space around it. It's not going to cease to be an option in this giant kitchen of life.
Totally.
Right. So, yeah.
Well put. Well,
Yeah.
I love what you're cooking up.
Good one. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love what you are too. And, I love that your voice is amplified in this world, because that's, again, just putting out those vibrations of absolute goodness.
Right back at you, sis.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And, love your pod. Love Fight
you.
for Her.
Thank
What's the new
you.
project again? You were saying it's a new.
Now, if anyone wants to follow me, I'm at Real Amy Edwards on Instagram. I need to put more TikToks out there. I'm at The Magic Babe on TikTok, and I'm at amyedwards.info or amyedwards.com. .info has links to all my episodes. It's got links to my courses. It's got links to Fight for Her. You can learn more about absolutely anything that we've talked about, really. And I have courses on Youthfulness Hack, which is really about creating those foundational practices that can lead you to feeling good at every age. And so I have a free course too called The Ageless Mindset. And then what else did you ask?
Just the newest thing. They're like,
oh,
you're
my
always
water
on to the
bottle
next one.
and
Yeah.
stuff. So that's coming. That's coming.
Awesome.
I'm in development right now. I'm getting my first prototype made, and I've written my business plan and all that. So that'll be in the next probably 10 months. So I'm very excited about the water bottle company, and I'm writing a book proposal to go with it. And that's just the evolution of this foundation of flowing out into life.
What's the premise around the water bottle aspect, like the lack of hydration in the day to day? I mean, I'll go like hours where I'm like, my head hurts. I'm like, oh, it's because I drank water like 7 hours ago. What the hell's wrong with me? Yeah.
I mean, we all buy a lot of different water bottles. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I am creating a 1-for-1 model. And so when you buy our water bottle, you will know that someone who has experienced water scarcity is getting a clean container to put it in. I've seen Justin give clean water, videos of that over and over, and people will put it in a dirty paint can, a vegetable oil container, a coffee mug, or a mug that makes no sense. They don't have anything clean and useful to put water in. And so my aim is to create a 1-for-1 model around that. So when you see it and you buy it, you know that they are getting a water container, or their family. I want to avoid any pitfalls of overage of inventory. So their family would get a larger container, like a jerry can size, or their community down the road would hopefully get a water catchment system.
Amazing. So
It's called
service-based.
Overflow Bottle Co. So,
Amazing.
yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Amy, you're such an inspiring person. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Bob. I love you so much. Justin said to tell you he loves you. He said, I love you. So
Justin's given me some big bear hugs and said, I love you. And I'm like,
it's the best.
I'm like, Justin, I'm like questioning shit right now.
It feels really good. I mean, he's just like, oh, I live for it. I love it so much.
Y'all are bright lights.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Mwah.